Yeah, you're muted, so we're,
Yep, I think we can go ahead and get started.
okay, thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Rocky Moretti. Moretti is spelled Moretti, and I'm the Director of Policy and Research with TRIP. TRIP is a transportation research nonprofit organization based in Washington, D.C. We're supported by a coalition of manufacturing, insurance, construction, labor, and engineering organizations. And they look to us to put out the latest data on transportation across the country at the state, national, and regional level. Today, after my comments, we're also going to be hearing from State Senator Anna Kaplan, Robert Sinclair from AAA Northeast, and also Matthew Cohen, who's with the Long Island Association. The format for the webinar is after our comments from the four panelists. Any journalist can indicate just by hitting their question segment or icon, and my colleague Carolyn Kelly will then invite you to be a panelist, which will then allow you to ask your questions in person. Since 1971, TRIP as an organization has released over 600 reports, and we typically are looking at the condition of the transportation system, traffic congestion, traffic safety, and also the impact of the system on economic development. The report we're releasing today is looking at traffic congestion on Long Island. It's based on the latest research from the reaching out to the counties of Nassau and Suffolk County. And for this report, Long Island is defined as Nassau and Suffolk County, as well as analysis from the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council and the U.S. Department of Transportation, and also working with congestion research being done at the Texas Transportation Institute, which is very helpful in modeling and looking at the cost of traffic congestion. The data itself in the report that we're using for this analysis predates COVID, which has obviously had a massive impact on our transportation system. What we're seeing nationally is that travel levels are moving back to pre-COVID levels. In some regions, they're already there, and it's in the Northeast. They're taking longer to return to those levels. But although the shock was obviously far more swift, it does, in some respects, harken back to the 2008 economic recession that we went through, where we saw travel actually dip and then take over the course of a couple of years to get back to that level and then begin significant increases subsequently. This shock seems to be more dramatic. We're still watching some key trends, such as moving to more working at home and also greater reliance on personal vehicles. Still unclear how those trends ultimately will play out. The sense is that some of the trends that were occurring pre-COVID were accelerated by the ongoing pandemic. But that notwithstanding, looking into the future from the perspective of transportation, we still see significant growth in travel occurring, and the challenges of traffic congestion, while COVID has in essence for a while relieved that traffic congestion, obviously long-term the challenges very much remain. If we look at the report again, just looking at Suffolk and Nassau County, what we've seen is that tremendous levels of traffic growth are likely to continue well into the future. TRIP estimates that the current level of traffic congestion on Long Island is costing the average motorist $1,684 annually in the value of lost time and also wasted fuel because of delays caused by traffic congestion. We estimate the overall economic cost on Long Island of traffic congestion is approximately $1.9 billion. And TRIP estimates that the average commuter on Long Island is spending an additional 81 hours annually stuck in traffic due to the high levels of traffic congestion that we see on the major corridors in Long Island. The report also took a look at the impact of traffic congestion on freight delivery. Obviously, during COVID, we've seen an even greater demand for freight movement. We're all highly reliant on delivery at home of a variety of products. Those trends are likely to continue, and the report estimates that traffic congestion is creating an additional, on average, 3 million hours of delay annually for large commercial trucks on Long Island. So as you would anticipate, the greater levels of traffic congestion you have, it's not only slowing commuting, it's slowing the function of businesses, the movements of products and services across the region. Looking into the future, based on continued growth in population, and current estimates are that Long Island will see an additional 400,000 residents by 2045. TRIP estimates that the level of traffic congestion on Long Island's roads will increase by 57% by 2045. That increase is unless that the region can take a variety of steps to improve the efficiency and also the capacity of its transportation system. Not only its roads and highways, but also its public transit system and its expanding system of bike and pedestrian facilities. The TRIP report also includes information on the 10 most congested sections of highways in Long Island. That includes portions of the Long Island Expressway, the Southern State Parkway, and also the Sunrise Highway. We also include in the report a list of some of the most critically needed projects to help improve mobility on Long Island and also address traffic congestion. This includes major improvements to key interchanges and intersections in the region, the extension of the region's trail system, and also the expansion of the region's rail and bus rapid transit system. We're now I'm gonna ask the senator to make a few comments, and then we'll also be hearing from AAA as well as the Long Island Association. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I am Anna Kaplan. I'm New York State Senator representing District 7. And I want to start by thanking Rocky Moretti and TRIP for their work on this important report. Also, thanks to the advocacy of AAA. And also thank you to Long Island Association for always putting the needs of Long Island first and fighting for our community. You won't find a single person on Long Island who would be surprised to hear that the traffic we deal with every single day is bad for our quality of life and worse for the economic vitality of our region. Today, we're here because TRIP, releasing a new report, is detailing Long Island's most congested roadways and just how damaging these problems are to our region. And lucky for me, 4 of the most congested roadways run through my district. So this problem is near and dear to me, and I'm invested in seeing that we address it. But beyond just the problem of traffic, the TRIP report points out just how much our regional prosperity is connected to our ability to move people and goods around the island efficiently. And as we look for creative ways to jumpstart our economy and recover from the economic impact of the pandemic on our communities, there is no better economic driver than big, sustained investment in our infrastructure. I believe the time to act is now, so that we can get people back to work, get our region moving again, and set ourselves for prosperity. Of course, none of this comes without a cost, and we all know the situation right now is dire. So today, I'm calling on the federal administration to step up and do the right thing so that we can get our economy growing and get Long Island moving again. And thank you again for including me in this event. Pass it on to you, Mr. Moretti.
And now we're going to hear from Robert Sinclair with AAA Northeast.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for having me. We know that growth and development has proceeded on Long Island pretty much unchecked since the end of World War II. Returning soldiers looking to flee the cities and enjoy the suburban life started moving out to Long Island. In fact, in the early 1950s, the rate of growth in Long Island was the greatest of any location in the country. In the early 1960s, 40% of the population was under 21. And those young people started having children and buying cars, and the numbers continued to expand and expand. Growth and development in roadways proceeded correspondingly. We saw the Long Island Expressway begun in the late 1950s, completed out to Riverhead by 1972. And anyone driving around these days will tell you that there is a lot of traffic on Long Island. And in fact, we looked at DMV figures and the number of registered vehicles on Long Island. The number is at or surpassing 2 million vehicles, with more than 150,000 added from 2012 to 2017. What the TRIP report does is enable us to know exactly where these problems are, to quantify them. But going forward, with the projects listed that are most necessary and what they will cost, we know exactly what needs to be done. Noteworthily, this year is the expiration of the FAST Act, the Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act, the federal highway bill, one of which is passed every 5 years. With this report in hand, we know exactly what needs to be done to help the congestion on Long Island, a vitally important area, a bedroom community, if you will, to New York City. We urge, along with the senator and everyone else, that the administration and Congress take up the new Surface Transportation Act, whatever name they might give to it, and have sufficient funds available to get these projects done so that we can have an efficient surface transportation that'll be good for the economy and good for the quality of life of everyone on Long Island and those that might be coming to visit us.
Thank you. We'll now hear from Matthew Cohen with the Long Island Association.
Thank you, Rocky. My name is Matthew Cohen. I'm Vice President of Government Affairs for the Long Island Association, which is the leading business organization in the region. Work closely with our President and CEO, Kevin Law, who wanted to be here, but actually had another event that he had to be at. So unfortunately, you're stuck with me. But I want to just first off thank Rocky and Carolyn and the folks at TRIP for what's really a phenomenal report. It's really informative and enlightening, and it's going to help us in our advocacy for the region. Want to thank Senator Kaplan, who does a tremendous job for her district and the entire state. Her district's very lucky to have her. And of course, Robert Sinclair and the folks at AAA. I have my AAA card in my wallet right now, so I don't leave home without it. So thank you for everything you do for our region. And I just want to note that, we are very supportive of the findings of this report. We advocate for investments in our infrastructure in Albany, locally in Albany and in Washington. And, this is an issue of economic competitiveness. This is an issue of jobs. This is an issue of safety, right? These are all things that we should be working on together. And it's, to us, it's a no-brainer. We've worked very closely with the Long Island Contractors Association and Mark Herbst, who I also want to mention because when it comes to advocating for our roadways and our transportation network in this region, there is nobody more vocal, helpful, courageous, and at the front lines than Mark Herbst, the Long Island Contractors Association. So kudos to them, and we work very closely with them with the LIA. So again, just to put a pin on it, we should really be investing in our infrastructure, the major projects that are identified in the report and others. And I think that'll help us as we try to, rebuild our economy because we and the entire nation is struggling right now. Long Island's an important place. TRIP recognized that. That's why they did the report. And as we try to recover economically from the pandemic here and throughout the country, this is going to be hopefully part of the key to that. Thank you, Rocky.
Thank you, Matthew. Carolyn Kelly, who's on the TRIP staff, is moderating. Carolyn, are there any questions?
I don't see any yet, but as Rocky noted at the beginning of the news conference, if any of the media who are tuning in this morning have questions that they'd like to address to our speakers this morning, you can submit them in the Q&A box below, or if you click the icon to raise your hand, I'll be able to recognize you and you can ask your question live of the speakers and they'll be able to answer that live. So we'll give that a moment so that if there are any questions, they can be entered. But in the meantime, we'd like to say again, thank you to the speakers for joining us this morning. And as Rocky noted, the report will be up online on the TRIP website at tripnet, tripnet.org. Should be up there right now, as well as the news release that goes along with that. There's also video footage of Rocky there. And we will also have a recording of this news conference that'll be available shortly after the conclusion once we get that prepared and put up online. So you'll be able to access all those resources on the TRIP website this morning. I don't see any questions that have come in. Again, we'll give that another short amount of time. If there's any other remarks that any of the speakers would like to make in addition to your prepared remarks, we'd be happy to hear those now.
I would also like to go ahead and recognize Long Island Contractors Association and Mark Herbst for really his hard work. I've worked with him and continue to see what we can do together. Long Island is crucial, and we need to do whatever we can together to make sure we are up and running. Thank you.
I do see a question from Alfonso Castillo at Newsday. Alfonso, I've just allowed you to speak. You'll need to unmute yourself, but you should be able to ask your question of the presenter. So please go ahead.
Okay, hi everybody. Good to see you all. I had a question about the pandemic and what, if any, lasting impact it's expected to have on traffic on Long Island. And I imagine it could cut both ways. On one hand, you've got a lot more people teleworking, working from home. I know that that's had some effect on public transit ridership. But the flip side of that, I imagine, is that those people who have returned to their workplaces, as I understand it, a lot more are driving because of concerns about safety on public transit. So can you talk about those two? Does it end up a wash? Has one proven to be more of an issue than the other? Thank you.
We also point out in the report that the vast majority of trips that begin in Nassau and Suffolk County stay within either those counties or certainly within the greater Long Island. And we also point out that the vast majority of commuting trips initiating on Long Island are in personal vehicles. What we're seeing nationally with COVID obviously was a greater reliance on personal vehicles, but also a significant increase in working from home. And generally speaking, obviously there was a significant reduction in travel, as much as 40% in some regions. Now generally it's about 10% below pre-COVID levels. With the anticipation, as we get into next year, we'll see largely a recovery back to pre-COVID levels. Again, what reminds me of the 2008 recession was also transportation became vital to essentially moving forward and economic recovery post-recession. And again, much like what we saw in 2008, it was a breather from our traffic congestion challenges, if you like. But we know into the long term, we're going to see high levels of traffic congestion return and actually get significantly worse. So it's really created an opportunity. And I think as the senator pointed out, and also I think Robert and Matthew did as well, that it's really a win-win. If we take this opportunity now to increase our investment in transportation, we're going to accommodate this increasing travel that we're going to see post-COVID, but also create a lot of economic growth and recovery at a very critical time. Did any other speakers want to address that?
Oh, I wanted to add that the congestion that we have seen in New York City was the worst prior to the pandemic in the history of the city. And we're getting back close to those levels now. Going forward, with so many people abandoning public transportation for fear of contracting the virus, we've seen an increase in the number of vehicles on the roads. And certainly the number of used vehicles being sold is up 22% compared to this time last year. So a lot of people are voting with their steering wheels and deciding to get out on the road as a means of getting around. So certainly we're anticipating that there would be more traffic going forward. Once things return to normal, it might be a wash, but again, we were at record levels prior to the influence of the pandemic. And we're coming back. As far as gasoline consumption is concerned locally, we're about 85% of where we were last year, but last year we were setting records in the amount of gasoline consumed. So we're not there yet, but it certainly looks like we'll get back there if things return to normal. It really depends on the propagation of the disease going forward.
Thank you for that. If there's any other comments to
Maybe a
add?
follow-up, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
One thing that comes to mind hearing you all talk is the potential role of the MTA's congestion pricing plan. Robert, you talk about traffic in New York City. How far would that go if more people now are driving to work than taking transit because of concerns about the virus? I imagine if driving into the city meant paying a new toll, maybe that would push some people back to transit.
It might. Well, number one, it must be noted that final approval from the federal government for congestion pricing hasn't come through as yet. Our worry all along is that traffic would simply be displaced, that it would not end, but that it would go to Upper Manhattan, to Brooklyn and Queens, and those areas closest to New York City with the advent of congestion pricing. And you have to realize people that are driving to the areas that congestion pricing would be in effect aren't going there because they want to. These are not pleasure trips. They're going there because they have to, for whatever reason, the nature of their business, having to have tools or whatever, if they might be tradesmen. So congestion pricing is something that's probably going to have an effect. We don't know if it'll be the effect that's intended, but we'll be looking at it very closely going forward. But we're not there yet. We're still waiting for that approval.
Thank you.
All right, I see we have another question from Carolyn Gussoff with WCBS TV in New York. Carolyn, you've been brought in. Go ahead and unmute yourself and you'll be able to ask your question as well.
Thank you. I see the report recommends action, but rather vaguely, like projects, improvements, programs to increase capacity. Can anybody be a little specific as to what the recommendations are?
If you look at that specific set of projects, and we put that list together, working with NASA and Suffolk County officials, and really they fall into three main areas. The one is expanding capacity, but really expanding the capacity in a very congested corridors like you see in Long Island, and a lot of those that are fairly constrained in terms of where those corridors are. It's really incremental. It's improving interchanges, some of the major intersections, and they also point out the need for continuing to improve the trail system. So it's acknowledging, one of the things we've also seen during COVID is bicycling and walking, for that matter, have also increased. And then finally, including some of the key rail and bus rapid transit corridors. And I think it's a recognition that we will get through this virus, and people's transportation patterns, while I think they may be subtly changed in the long term, are going to go back to using public transit. And like I said, also some of these key corridors need to be improved further. But again, it was notable that the projects they pointed out were more incremental in nature. And then also what we're seeing is really a need to look at smaller improvements, things like traffic signalization, even better management of incidents, traffic crashes. And so in reality, it is doing a bunch of things to make the system more efficient. And I think there was also some discussion of in terms of consumer behavior and the demand for the system. But again, with Long Island's population going to increase by another 400,000 over the next 25 years, the region really needs to focus on all of those elements.
I don't see any other questions that have come in. If there are any, we'll need to take those now, but if not, I think we'll wrap up the Q&A portion.
And there are contact information for all of the speakers, so we're quite reachable today if any of you want to ask additional questions. Well, thank you, and we appreciate everyone taking some time out of their busy schedules this morning.
Thank you.
You.